Looking good in your headphones. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Fahmi Syed. I am CFO of Priority Technologies. We are one of the leading contributors to the Polkadot network. And I'm joined by a wonderful panel of builders within the Polkadot ecosystem. And I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. So, Jeffrey, if I can ask you to introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Jeffrey Edel. I'm the CEO and chairman of MeWe, and we are a Web 2 use case with 20 million users and 650,000 groups, and we are moving to Web 3 onto Parity, onto frequency blockchain onto Polkadot, and we're excited to do that. And I have a lot of entertainment background, so I'm supposed to be funny. No, just a lot of entertainment background, and I come from that world as well. But pleased to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Giga. I'm one of the founders of Origin Trail Trusted Knowledge Foundation. And what we help within the enterprise sector, we help instill transparency and trust in supply chains. And one such example is we help American importers secure essentially imports by allowing them to share audit reports using our decentralized knowledge graph. And this is encompassing some 40% of the entirety of the imports to the United States. So this is one such example. I'm glad to be here to talk about more about what we do.
And hi, my name's Derek Yu. I'm the CEO of PureStake, also the founder of a project called Moonbeam. Moonbeam is a smart contract platform that's deployed as a parachain on Polkadot. I guess it's one of the things it's known for, or best known as, is the EVM of Polkadot. So that's the place where you can deploy Ethereum-compatible kind of smart contracts, Solidity smart contracts, use Ethereum tools. So a big focus on developer infrastructure and ecosystem development, right? To have a whole DeFi and other kinds of protocols deployed in the Moonbeam ecosystem. And I'd say that our focus has really been around enabling cross-chain use cases, leveraging some of the unique features that exist on Polkadot.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'm glad to see you all representing your parachains here, and again, it shows the diversity within our ecosystem. So we're here to talk about Blockspace and how the evolution of Blockspace over blockchain within Polkadot might help drive end-user adoption. So with that in mind, we seem to be at a pivotal point, turning point in the industry, into the blockchain industry. A lot of headwinds in terms of public perception, regulations, focus on what the technology actually does, and whether there is any sort of end user function that has a real purpose. So, but yeah, at the other end, the mind shift is changing in terms of the approach, the institutional focus in this space. More and more developers thinking about end user usability. So where do you think the evolution of Web3 is heading? Are we still in the early days? And what do you think we need to do in terms of technology catching up to that vision?
So clearly we're in baseball terms, and I know there's probably a lot of international folks here too, we're in inning 1, 2, or 3. We're right at the beginning of everything. Right now, I come from a Web 2 world, and what it looks like is there's DeFi on the blockchain, and there's crypto, that's what people know about, and there's no real large user base that exists out there. So people are developing apps for the blockchain, for the different chains that exist. So I think until it's like the cart and the horse in a way, because to get the end users to come on board, they have to have things to do. And it has to be compelling for them. That's what we're finding at MeWe. But people are willing to take the leap, jump onto the blockchain, get their social graph protected, get a universal login that could be theoretically interoperable, certainly on your platform, and then start adding items that exist in the Web3 world to make it more compelling, more apps, so forth, that will come on board. So we think it's very early on, but clearly user adoption and other apps need to come on board.
Thank you. Shiga?
Yeah, I would say the same as 5 years ago when we launched the first product in Web3. We're still in the beginning phases of the Web3 adoption, and I agree with Jeffrey. I think also our lingo should change when we're trying to convince the mainstream users to use Web3 services. I believe our language should not involve many Web3 terms. We should be talking about the value. We should be talking about, how this will benefit them, and then we will see actually the mainstream coming into crypto and visiting conferences. Just last week I was in Singapore, and now I'm here. I'm seeing a lot of, if I was to read from the banners I'm seeing over there, I'm reading like 80% of the lingo over there. It's not readable to normies. And in 5 years' time, if we're going to read that 100% of the banners over there are going to be understandable to normies. I think only then we can say that we're opening doors to the mainstream users.
What you just said, Zinga, thank you, because we have user groups, Web3 user groups, in thousands on platform, and they don't understand the vernacular. So we have to present things to them, not like they're not intelligent, but just to make it more mainstream. Because what exists for 5 or 10 million people that own wallets is a different lingo, a different language to the real world.
Derek, what are your thoughts? You've been in the ecosystem. I think you're one of the longest serving parachains. So what are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, for me, it boils down to user experience, and that's like the key inhibitor right now for larger adoption, especially given that the Web 2 user experiences have gotten so refined over time that there's a pretty stark contrast when you move into Web 3. Obviously, a lot of focus has gone on scalability, kind of infrastructure and scalability. That's a necessary but not a sufficient condition for good UX, right? You need it to be scalable, you need to be performant. But I still see that as one of the key challenges that, you take a regular Web 2 user and move them to Web 3. I was actually trying to help my mother through some of these things, like using MetaMask and using a bridge, and she made it pretty far. I got to say, I give her credit. But that was quite difficult for her. So I think, I still see it as, I think back to early days of my career in Web 2, where, or even Web 1, where it was like this, where you kind of had to have a lot of technology, like domain knowledge. You were kind of had awareness of the infrastructure you were interacting with, and then that's been abstracted away over time. So that's the same path that Web 3 has to go, to create higher level abstractions so that you don't have to be so knowledgeable about the infrastructure that you're interacting with.
I agree very much. Scalability is very important, usability is very important, and sort of just simplification. There's a lot of tech speak. I appreciate we have a mix of a panel here, both developers and more commercial minded, but simplification. And again, to that point, scalability. As part of the drive to provide more value to end users, there's been a push within the Polkadot ecosystem to push away from this narrative of blockchain. To move away from this very technology-minded centric sort of philosophy and move to a concept of Blockspace, about utilizing the power within the blockchain ecosystem, which allows ultimately for developers and for platforms optimization and scalability and customizability, coupled to the interoperability that we provide in Polkadot. We believe that is partly the future. So maybe, Derek, I start with you. Can you talk a bit about the benefits of Polkadot? What sort of attracted you to the space? And how do you think this evolution of Blockspace ecosystem can support you in that drive for scalability?
Sure, yeah. So, the first part of the question about what attracted me to Polkadot in the first place still remains very much true. And that is that I see, even back when we started Moonbeam in 2019, the idea or the vision was there's going to be many blockchains, but they're going to be specialized blockchains. And by having the ability to create specialized blockchains and then creating an environment where they can interact with each other, that's where you really get interesting scenarios, right? Because one blockchain can focus on being really good at one set of tasks, and maybe it's less good at other ones. But then through interaction, it can interact with another chain that is maybe good at the things that you're not good at. So this is how the regular economies work in the world, right? Different countries specialize in different things, and they trade with other partners that are good at other things. And so that idea was very attractive to me, and I think that still remains a core real value prop, in Polkadot, is that you have these tools to create these specialized blockchains, and you have an environment in which you can interact between these different specialized systems. And there really is not much like that that's out there. So if I look at kind of what's happening out more broadly in the industry, it's definitely gotten easier to make your own blockchain. That's for sure, right? So you have all these rollups now, L2s on Ethereum, but the joke I make is that you can have any color you want as long as it's a vanilla EVM, right? So there's like one kind of blockchain you can have, and I don't think the future. I mean, that's helpful and useful, but that doesn't cover all use cases. Think about a file storage use case. Well, you're not going to do that on EVM. EVM is a bad environment to do that. And so my vision has always been one of creating a kind of cloud-like experience for developers, like you can get in Web 2, like AWS, Google, there's a lot of vendors that provide this, but having those services be decentralized or Web 3-based services. And I think you need an environment like Polkadot to make that vision happen. You need a toolkit to be able to create these specialized services and an environment where you can use them together. And so to the second part of your question about Blockspace, that framing, I see it as a natural evolution, just like Web 2 did, right? So in Web 2, you have the concept of a server, let's say, and so at the beginning you had a single server yourself. Then maybe it got easier to create virtual machines or your own servers in the cloud. But the developer experience now for a Web 2 developer is you don't even have the concept of servers anymore. It's a data storage service, it's an identity service, it's these different services you're plugging together to make your application. And so I see Web3 is needing to follow, it's going to follow in those same footsteps, because that creates higher levels of abstraction, easier to create applications, easier to make great user experiences.
Great, thank you. And Giga, same to you, please.
Yeah, we launched our first decentralized knowledge graph solution on Ethereum back in 2018, and the experience was horrible from scalability perspective and from the cost perspective. And it was, prohibitive for enterprise adoption to take place because it was simply not scalable, too costly. Then we moved towards, something a little bit less costly, but still not as decentralized to other layer 2s. I think that gave us quite a lot of, I would say, boost, especially in terms of scalability. But we were still not yet there. The full decentralization was still not there. And then in 2021 we started considering to get involved in Polkadot ecosystem, which we really had great expectations of, and we knew the foundational work of the founders of Polkadot, and then also being convinced of what Polkadot stands for. Polkadot stands for interoperability, and interoperability also brings one important superpower, which is you don't need to figure it out all by yourself, but you have very good builders already existing in Polkadot, such as Moonbeam, who had figured out certain things well before us, and we can pull from the existing knowledge, and more so, we can then connect to the existing parachain ecosystems, such as, of course, Moonbeam, Frequency, Kilt, etc. And we can essentially create the network effects, not only between different users bases, but also between different specifics of that parachain have, and bring those specifics in our ecosystems, and then empower users. So it's an all-around solution, and it's great to see that we have something to show for. We have adoption, which parachain can ingest. We can grow on parachain. We can grow on Polkadot, and so far, empirically, we have proven that one can scale really quickly using the Polkadot technology.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
So originally, through Frequency, it was built on Ethereum, and that was the backbone originally. We had some of the same experiences that you talked about. So the company evaluated 30 different platforms and found Polkadot to be the one that was the most scalable and cost-effective. Remember, we have 20 million people on our platform. We have a large vision to try to create this new social web and change the way the world exists today in that world. So we don't like what's happening with centralized governance and surveillance and so forth. So we needed a platform that could scale with us. We're doing billions of different transactions, if you will, and Polkadot we felt was the one that could support that growth at the right cost.
Well, I think you all made the right choice, but I'm biased. But I think, first of all, thank you all for the contribution you've made to the ecosystem. Again, it's the case of the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, but I think you all contribute in many ways. I mean, Jiga, you and I were in Singapore last week, and we spoke about, again, just to touch on scalability and the functionality that Blockspace will bring. Gavin and Bjorn and various stages have spoken about the utility power of Polkadot, and they currently think of it as a group of multiple CPUs. And today, parachains essentially access one CPU for a set period of time. And the concept within Blockspace is to be able to not anchor yourself to one CPU, but be able to access all of them as and when your demand requires it from your parachain. So maybe within your use case, how do you think Blockspace can support your scalability and your growth?
Yeah, like you said, it's about flexibility, and you don't need to spend a lot of time developing your parachain to really extract the utility you need for your application or for your use case. And also thinking about Blockspace, it creates this environment where you have this low operational leverage. You don't need to be over leveraged in terms of committing yourselves towards creating a lot of high fixed costs. You simply exploit the capacities that are made available by the ecosystem and use it as you go. And that's very important because especially in the enterprise adoption, you also need to be mindful of your cost structure. You don't want to overcommit yourself by spending too much. At the end of the day, although we're involved in one of the quickest expanding niches, you still need to be mindful of your finances.
Absolutely. As a CFO, I agree with that very much. So let's talk about end user adoption. So what we're talking about here is Blockspace for developers. From a commercial point of view, also it matters. But why does this change in adoption and utility access matter to the end user? So, Jeffrey, if I start with you, I mean, MeWe is one of the largest decentralized social media networks. How does this matter to your end users?
Well, MeWe was developed under the concept of privacy and free speech, but it was supposed to be respectful free speech. And what we put out there to our community, to the users, to our members, we call them, is that we're going to protect their identities, we're going to protect their data and information, and we're not going to amplify misinformation and cause more discourse in the world, whether it's political or otherwise. There's obviously big issues that exist now, children, mental issues with social media and so forth. So what's going to be key here is we're basically doubling down on the concept of privacy by moving to the blockchain. And we're allowing people to own and control their own social graphs. And those social graphs would be theoretically portable around with the handles. But to what you said earlier, Ziga, is education is going to be key. It's very difficult to get people to understand what all this means, how it can affect, and how they could benefit them. And unless we get more apps on platform, more users on platform, where people can do things, they're just going to jump in, jump out. And there's already been a tainting because of everything that's gone on in the whole crypto world. So we're seeing firsthand, as a social media company, the chats that go on, people switch. They say, I want to go back. Or when are the tokens happening? And is this a crypto scam? And so on. So I think having some proven apps that exist on platform that people could see that are other than crypto are going to be very important for the future of this.
Thank you. And Derek, look, I think Moonbeam is a great example of multi-chain sort of applications and dApps being built on yourselves. What are the applications developers are looking for? And what are the benefits of Moonbeam in terms of bringing this to your audience?
Yeah, and there's been a few waves or phases of developer adoption, I'd say, on Moonbeam, where obviously, given its EVM compatible environment, I think there was a first wave of a lot of projects that were looking to access Polkadot as an ecosystem, but using familiar Ethereum-based tools. So that was definitely a first wave. But what we're seeing now is actually there are two interesting trends that we're seeing more recently. So one trend is towards more traditional companies, so fintech companies, TradFi, that are now figuring out how to use Web3 technologies in the context of what's a more traditional business. And so that's a pretty intriguing kind of development from my perspective, moving from this, let's call it pure crypto native kind of use case to, hey, these are people with like kind of more like traditional businesses, but they're realizing I used to do things this way, and Web3 offers me like a way to be cheaper, more competitive, like I can get competitive advantage through using Web3 technology. So that's one interesting trend. There are other things. There's games, I think, is another area, but for us on Moonbeam, it's also these cross-chain scenarios. So back to the comments I was making before about user experience, I think what the things I'm most interested in are people that are trying to create almost blockchain agnostic experiences, right? So like maybe the user doesn't even know which or how many blockchains they're using, but you're able to interact with users across like a wide variety of different venues. And so a lot of those scenarios are being powered using cross-chain technologies of different kinds, right? So you're hiding away the infrastructure away from the user, and then being able to give them this like much simpler user experience.
Thank you. And Giga, Origin Trail, is one of the world's first decentralized knowledge graphs. You're working with supply chains and healthcare among some of the industries you're in. Tell us about some of those application use cases, and again how you benefited from Polkadot and also the concept of Blockspace.
Yeah, I mentioned one earlier, the trade finance and international trade. We're helping companies exchange audit reports for importers to the United States, for example, and they also share those informations to CBP. So it's always about a certain network scenario where you would have companies exchanging crucial information to advance their business, to secure their supply chains, etc. In Europe, we work with Swiss Federal Railways. We help them, make their service safer by allowing for more transparency and trust when it comes to spare parts installation and then maintenance. Food supply chains, we have dozens of European projects financed by the European Commission that are using Origin Trail to develop new kinds of business models for information to be exchanged. And of course, having Polkadot here, it allows us to deploy solutions much more quickly. Just today, we launched a solution for media companies to essentially launch press releases as knowledge assets. These are actually knowledge NFTs that allow you to show who's the owner of certain information and what is the track record or a genesis of an information, so that you can also fight misinformation. You can also prove the information provenance, and also implementing trusted AI on top of it, you can very quickly come to to an information you're looking for. And all of this is possible because we have this this very capable tool in our arsenal, which does not need to be always molded into something different. It's always ready to be deployed in various different scenarios. And sometimes deployment of a solution, it's a matter of just a couple of weeks from the inception towards the production phase of a solution. Also thanks to the parachain that we use to power the decentralized knowledge graph, which then furthermore powers different use cases.
Great, thank you. I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to ask you one last question, and I'll ask you to keep it to a minute each. What's next? What's upcoming? What do we have to look forward to? And you've all explained the exciting things that you're currently doing, but what is coming? And then how do we get others involved into your space in terms of bringing, again, that end user adoption?
So we have a lot of exciting things on platform that we're going to be doing over the next couple of years, but I want people to understand this is not a pipe dream. This is not something that is in the future. What MeWe is doing right now, trying to change social media on the frequency parachain sitting on top of Polkadot, is happening right now. You could literally go to the App Store, download an app, you can go into Web3 today, and we'll probably by, I would think tonight, I was hoping it now, by tonight or tomorrow, we'll be the largest on all chains, the largest on-chain user base that exists in the world. So it is real, it is happening now. We have some really cool generative AI that we're going to be using on platform. I thank you, Zinga, for some of your ideas and Moonbeam, so we'll work together on some of that. We also are going to create these 600,000 groups. If you create groups on the platform, we're going to NFTize those. So you're going to have a value to a group, a company you're building and owning, and you'll be able to see how much it's worth. And you could trade it if you get tired. You can hand it to another person that's going to administrate and run it. So we're going to do some things with AI. So a lot of exciting things on platform, but that's some of it with the NFTs and the AI. And just getting onto Web3 is an adventure and is an experience. Thank you.
Congratulations. We look forward to hearing more about that. Giga.
Yeah, I touched upon briefly on a solution that we recently launched with Blockchain Wire, and I think what we're doing right now, it's essentially opening ways for mainstream users, and we need to simplify our lingo. And builders such as MeWe and Frequency, they already have an already existing Web2 user base that is, over there, and they know exactly what kind of solutions and what kind of lingo they should use to cater to those user groups. So I think the doors are opening, the floodgates are opening very slowly, and we're going to be seeing an exciting future for both builders and user bases.
I already talked a bit about some of the things happening at Moonbeam, so I'll take a moment to talk about another project that actually has some former Moonbeam team members on it that have left to start their own project called Tansy, and it's really fitting with the theme of what I talked about before, where they're in development now to create a system that will make it super easy for developers to launch their own chains. Right. So right now, to launch your own chain is like at least a 6-month, 1-year effort. Like typically, there's all these infrastructural elements, bridges, other things you need to incorporate. But the idea around this Tansy project is to be able to, in a single session, developer will be able to, point and click in a web interface, upload like some configurations, and then end that session with like a fully production, like secured blockchain. And so that's uniquely enabled by the Polkadot architecture, and I'm pretty excited about that project.
Fantastic. So I just want to finish with, look, I think you've seen here today, we have a very wide cross-section representation of the Polkadot ecosystem. They're all building in different areas and different spaces, but even within the collaboration in this panel, you can see how ideas, generations within each space can actually operate and pass between different parachains. So, and that's just an example of the interoperability Polkadot brings. And I think with Blockspace and the utilization and flexibility that will bring to builders in this space, we're very excited. So I want to thank my panel one last time for being here today and presenting the best of Polkadot. And I want to thank Masari for hosting us and everybody here for listening. Thank you.
Nice job, Femi.
Thanks very much.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.